Okay, so today I'm going to film a video on how to properly use your Brady Layne Beauty Sponges. I have a brand new one here still in the package that I'm going to take out. So when you get your beauty sponge, they're quite small. I'm going to show you a disgusting one. I have this one that I've been using for a couple months. It's so dirty right now, but this is the size that it eventually gets to be. The number one rule about your beauty sponge is that you want to wet it before every single application for two reasons. The first being when it's wet, the sponge doesn't absorb as much product, so you're not wasting as much product. The product won't go inside the sponge unless the sponge is dry, so you always want to wet it. And the other reason is that it gives you a dewy finish, and it makes sure that your foundation and your concealer, all your cream products, are going on your face evenly and applying just the right amount of product. Anyway, so the number one rule before we start is to wet the sponge. I have my eye makeup done. I haven't done my base yet because I'd like to show you how I do my base, mainly with the beauty sponge. So I'll be right back after I wet it. Okay, so I just wet my beauty sponge, which means that it grew in size compared to the original size before you take it out of the package. So to wet your beauty sponge, what I like to do is turn on running water, and I squeeze it under the running water about 10, 15, maybe even 20 times, because you want it wet, but you don't want it to hold water. But you need to wet it enough that it turns into this, it grows, it expands, and it's super bouncy. And that's how you're going to get your best results. So I stopped using primers about a year ago, and I actually just use a setting spray as my primer now. And on my clean face, moisturized face, I spray a setting spray before I even start my base. So to start my base, I'm going to use my foundation. Right now I'm using Tarte face tape in medium sand. And I put it on the back of my hand, and I dab my beauty blender in. And I start in the middle of my face. The way you apply foundation is that you want majority of the product in the center of your face, and you bring it out so that you don't have a ring around your hairline, around your neckline, or down your neck. Because by the time you get the majority of the product out here, it'll be nice and thin, so you don't have that obvious separation. So when you use your beauty blender, you can't drag. If you drag it across your face, you're only going to drag the product around. It's not going to stay where you want it. So when you use your blender, you have to dab. So to do my contour, that's my daughter screaming, you can go under your cheekbone. I lift the contour up a little bit. I don't go as low as I possibly could because I don't want to drag my face down. I'm using the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Stick Foundation in the color Y505. So I have a pointy chin. A lot of people do just right here on their jawline, but I have a really pointy chin and a sharp jaw, so I don't have to completely bring it over here. And then people with a larger forehead or a normal forehead but just want a contour, I like to do around the hairline. And then just because I'm obsessed with nose contouring, oh, see, a mess. I like to put a little bit on my nose. So that's my old sponge. So to blend in the contour, I still use the exact same end that we already did the foundation with of the beauty sponge. And once again, it's just dabbing. So then when I want to blend in the contour on my cheekbones, I like to dab, but in an upwards motion because I don't want to drag it down. And then around the hairline, and I like to dab it right into the hairline because you don't want an obvious separation. You want it to be as blended as best as possible. And then because the nose is a smaller area, I do like to use the side of it, and I just dab this way. So far that is the foundation and the contour. Okay, so the next step of my base is concealer. And concealer is used to cover under eye circles, but it's also used to highlight certain areas of your face. Contouring recedes and creates shadowy areas, and highlighting brings forth the areas. So when I use concealer, and I need a lot of it, I was blessed with very dark under eye circles, I like to cover this entire area, and I do around the nose because as women we just get red there because we get hormonal. And then I like to highlight the chin and the bridge of my nose and the forehead. And I'm using Tarte Shape Tape in the color light neutral. Concealer should be 1 or 2 shades lighter than your skin tone in order for it to highlight all the proper areas. If you get a concealer that's in the exact same shade as your foundation, you're just going to fall flat. You're not creating dimension on your face, so your concealer needs to be 1 or 2 shades lighter. So, to use my beauty sponge for the concealer, now that I've used it for my foundation, my contour foundation, I just like to use the corner, the top tip, and once again, you're dabbing. And I like to, a lot of people can draw a line of concealer here too, and it will really sharpen up that contour if you've made a bit of a mess of it. I do that when I go a little bit crazier than I did today. So I didn't have to today, but some days I do. And then the under eyes. And then after I'm done that, I will take the butt end of the blender again, and I kind of do that, go over that contour just to marry the contour with the concealer, because I don't want any harsh lines. So that's the concealer. Now that I'm done all of the creams on my face, you need to set any cream or liquid with a powder. It locks it in. If you don't set it, your creams just slide all over your face during the day. All of your makeup needs to be set with a powder. And once again, I use the beauty sponge to bake under my eyes. So what I do is I press it into a translucent powder, and it's on there. It's okay that it's wet. You still want it to be wet. And you're just going to tap that powder under your eye. And that will lock in your concealer. It won't budge all day, and your makeup's gonna be set. I take care of this with a powder brush after, but I do get shiny on my chin and on my forehead. In your T-zone, where you can tend to get really shiny, for a lighter finish, you can use a powder brush, but I like to lock in the powder so that I don't get shiny in my T-zone during the day. So I'll even use this to put it on my chin and on my forehead, right in the center where it gets shiny, and the tip of my nose. And I know it looks crazy, but then I will take a powder brush. This is a Brady Layne Beauty powder brush. It's a sample. I don't actually have these yet. But I will just take a little bit of powder and I brush away all of that excess powder. And that's how I do my base with the beauty sponge. I will go in and finish my base now. I still do wear bronzer and blush, depending on how I'm feeling, and I have to finish my lips, but that's how I do it with my beauty sponge.